we're going to be focusing on that most today. And if we do have time for questions, we'd love to take it, but you can type them in the chat. And most importantly, email me always. I'm Brian Quinlan. I'm the principal. It's kind of odd that we maybe have never met, as you guys are all pre-K, but B as in boy, QUINLAN@cps.edu. Email me. And of course, I'll be outside on Monday welcoming your children well, I won't get into the times, but these are the topics. Thanks, Ms. Lopez, for putting that in the chat. So this is a big overview slide of some of the protocols that we'll be putting in place. Okay, so for some of the protocols, first is we are going to need everybody to be wearing a beautiful cloth face mask covering, just like this, double cloth as CDC recommends. And so we do have these on site at Monroe Elementary, and we do want your children to show up wearing a mask. So children have masks and styles and flair all their own. And so we do want to also make sure that they show up to the building wearing this mask for the safety of themselves and others. As pre-K, you know, if you're new to pre-K, you've already probably picked up on the language that pre-K children use all the time. Friends, my friend told me this, my friend told me that. You know, this is very common in our beautiful pre-K program. And so we're carrying that through. And so we're all wearing masks because we're all friends. And so we need to do this right now as we work together as a community. This is part of our Mask Up Monroe initiative, and thanks to our teachers who have been teaching mask wearing throughout this week. And we're also, earlier they had talked about wearing masks on screen this week as a way to really increase in awareness. And so thanks for those teachers who have been practicing this work. Please wear a mask when the child walks to school, shows up at school, because as soon as they enter school property, they're going to need to be wearing a mask, of course, as is our local guidance. And we do have disposable masks and additional kid masks of varied sizes, colors, that we will be distributing as an as-needed basis. But it's important that your child comes to school with a mask at all times and is taking it home regularly to wash it. Teachers will also have masks available for them here. And of course, we have signage reminding you of all of this throughout the outside and interior of the school. Enhanced PPE for the age and development of the child. At Monroe Elementary, already stocked. You probably can see there's an air purifier going behind me, but for the PPE, the personal protective equipment, all the children, we have the youth masks, we also have adult masks, disposable and cloth for each, gloves, thermometers, multiple sets, iPads for this, well, that's on a gowns, clear face masks, face shields. All of this is depending on the age and the role of the child and or the adult, and they get different care packages for the different roles that they have. Clear masks for those, as we do have a wonderful blended program that's celebrated throughout our city here. A clear mask is good for speech pathology, and particularly the the development of sound for the young children. So we do have those as well. We currently do not have any accommodations for masks at Monroe Elementary, so everybody will be wearing a mask the entire time. If you do need an official due to a medical reason approved by a doctor, there's a process for that, and you can reach out to me and we can get that. But we are anticipating that nobody will have such an accommodation at Monroe, and nobody does have an accommodation as of Monday. Pods do not interact. Disinfection, we have a hospital grade air sanitizer that we are using regularly. We also have enhanced cleaning, including 2 additional custodians that have been deployed to Monroe, hired at Monroe and been staffed and have been working here since last spring. 2 wonderful ladies that are kicking butt and taking names, part of my language that may be inappropriate for a pre-K audience, but we have a wonderful custodial staff here. For social, pods do not interact with each other at lunch, play, bathrooms, etc. So this is an important concept we want you to know. When a child is coming to school, they're not interacting with other pods. They're not going out to recess and playing on the playground together. The playground's closed. They're not hanging out in the lunchroom together. They're eating in their classroom as a pod, and we will not have any interaction with pods, even though kids will be experiencing outdoor play and gross motor through our interior rooms, as well as our independent play packs that we can be using outside, hula hoops and bubbles and all these other fun Legos and all these other things we can think about. They're not going to be interacting with pods besides their own pod. Social distancing, 6 feet at all times. More feet fit 30 feet between pods. Enhanced cleaning techniques. 2 additional care rooms. We have our 2 care rooms operational. They're up and running. We have the one for different zones of the buildings. Sanitation of supply. Care rooms are where children, if we do have a child who has symptoms, I want to drive this home. Stay home. if you are sick, stay home, okay? It is important that we all carry this duty that nobody should be reporting whatsoever if you have any sort of sickness. We do ask that you stay home out of respect for yourself and your family, as well as ours as a school family. Care rooms, if a child does become symptomatic during the school day, we do have care room procedures, of course, with COVID protocols and countless protocols, enhanced PPE, et cetera, for the care rooms, but we do have them up and running. And staffed, sanitation of supplies and materials. We do want to making sure that we're sanitizing all our materials between sharing of kids, and so we have bought additional supplies. And so I'm kind of small on my screen, but you might be able to see that we have our desks are set up with 2 desks, the personal desk and then a desk next to them where the child keeps the supplies. Additionally, there's regular cleaning, including with air sanitizer, particularly for our half-day program. We do recognize the risk of a half-day program because they can switch midday, the pod switches midday. So one of the ways that we're using to mitigate that is that there will be an air sanitizer. That's why we've cut the half-day schedule down a bit. There's 2 hours there now, and so that we do have more cleaning and we are able to run our hospital-grade air sanitizer during that time. Symptomatic students we talked about the going to the care room and the quarantine that comes with that. And we do have surveillance testing of all of our staff, which means we're having COVID on site. And that's happening on a weekly basis, and additional slides throughout this presentation. As we move forward, we talk about the health protocols and how we're working with the contact tracing of the city here to really work through this and thinking about who had those confirmed cases and how do those confirmed cases, who do they interact with direct contact. And as you get farther along with the contact tracing team, who responds to you, we have been having great response rate as we've been doing this for the last few months. They lead you through that process. So a confirmed case gets reported, and you can also go to the website to see the COVID cases at Monroe Elementary, and each school. Chicago Public Schools publishes that data publicly for all to see. Next up, some of these slides, there's more slides went on as more time went on, but we did start with the ventilation system in every school building. Was completed, and then they did additional screeners after that, and then we also ended up with a hospital grade filter in every classroom and applicable meeting space. Those are running, and you can hear, I find, to be honest, the thing I like most about them is the white noise. I know this is an intense time for us, and so I honestly do like the white noise of the hospital grade air HEPA filter. And upon my research, I feel very comfortable with having that additional piece in here. They are throughout the building. We have increased airflow to the CPS very well. One of the pieces with this is I do recommend your child comes with like an extra coat, or not a coat, I should say, like a sweatshirt, like a zip up, like a hoodie or something like this, because it is a bit colder in our rooms because we are keeping the air open regularly as we circulate. So we are trying to keep the vents are blowing air through a lot. And then we also are having the windows open. So it's more than a cold, I should say, a draft of this like air cycle throughout the room. So I do recommend your child brings a little extra lightweight sweatshirt or something to keep on during the school day for an easy layer. Easy to button. Come on, we got kids. So we all know that. Don't be saying some of the crazy amount of buttons. Help us out, okay? Something easy to take on and off. So for the day of the life in a typical pre-K student is, and also cluster, this is how this is going to work. The first piece is that we always start off with that cloth face covering, as I aforementioned. We also ask that they do the screener, and you can write this in the chat. It is cps.edu/health screener before they come to school. So before you leave school, before you leave your house, we do ask that you do that health screener at cps.edu/health screener. And it leads you through. And you know what I would recommend? I recommend going on there now and just playing, don't hit submit at the end, but you can see all of the questions. It does include mandatory travel quarantine. It does include all of the symptoms. And it is in guidance with the health department professionals of our city on how they arrived at the questions that they did. And it will tell you whether or not you pass or fail. And depending on what you said to which question, it will tell you how long a quarantine is mandated if it is. It does include travel on there for our families. And so we know that we all are going to be trusting each other and loving on one another. And so we're going to need to really be trusting each other, not to be traveling during this time out of state. We know that Illinois' numbers, and in particular our city's numbers, look very different than the rest of the country. And yes, that needs to be done every day. cps.edu/health screener. We want to support you in that effort. And so CPS will be sending you an automatic text daily with that screener, so you can just click right in there and work through it. But it will also be sent to your, it already is sent outside. We have it on QR codes posted throughout our fences, and we will be outside on the first day with iPads to help you understand exactly how to get that done. So we make sure that you do those at cps.edu/health screener every day before school. That is mandatory. Traveling on the school bus, we're going to be wearing your cloth face coverings, and we're doing both of those before you even leave the home. Arrival at school. Pre-K will start from 8 to 3 p.m. for the full days, and so the rest of grades at Monroe Elementary are staggered at different times. And upon entering, we will have a temperature check that will be happening at the front door of the classroom. The kids will be entering the room directly at Monroe Elementary, directly from the turf field or area to the classroom. We want to limit any exposure of the hallways, et cetera. And so I thought this, well, it's coming up in a minute, and if on the next slide I can get to that. Oh, I thought there was a during the day slide. Maybe there's not. I'm going to keep going. There's a lot of information. So entry and exit, this is an important one. Please make sure that you always are 6 feet apart from one another at entry and dismissal using the sidewalk flowers. Actually, that last slide, if we could go back to that, I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping all around here. When we're outside, each of our families, we do ask that you stay 6 feet apart from each other at all times. And we've spray painted our engineer, Todd, real gruff and tough dude, but he knows how to paint the flower. So he's painted all sorts of flowers out on our sidewalk. We ask you to abide by those for social distancing from other families. The QR code, as I mentioned, the half day time. These are new times for Monroe Elementary. Half day is 8 to 10:30, 12:30 to 3, okay? The offices are open daily, but we always are trying to minimize our exposure and minimize who we're talking to. And so with that, we do ask, if it's possible, shoot the clerks an email and call us at that phone number. But our offices are open to you, and a big shout out to our clerks and our essential staff who have been working so diligently here. We really appreciate all the work, and sort of out of respect to them, if it's possible to send them an email or a call, please do. But they're incredibly welcoming ladies, and our offices are open. Sneeze guards, et cetera, of course. The playground gate between 403 and 404 remains closed. So if you're new to Monroe Elementary, first of all, I'm sorry that we can't give you a hug on the first day and welcome you to our school in a traditional setting. But with that, we do have a turf field, and the classrooms are all lined up in a row off of that turf field. And there is a gate at 403 and between 403 and 404. And that gate is going to remain closed. It's not locked because of fire reasons, but it is closed at all times now because we are trying to differentiate between the two sets of rooms. And so we are keeping that closed because that's also a tighter corridor. So we ask families that will exit from Lawndale Avenue, and 403 and 402 will exit on Monticello. So if you're new to our school, Monticello is the eastern of the two streets. And so we do ask that you use separation like that. They'll be entering the classroom, and then they will stay with that pod throughout the day, eating lunch in here. They will have gross motor time in our interior playgrounds. And our exterior areas, our turf field, we've taken down like our fencing, for instance, and our netting, so we can allow extra space out on our turf field. And we have sidewalk chalk and other markers out there. When it's 32 degrees, when it goes down, when it gets too cold, we won't be going outside. But we do, if you can go back a slide, I'm getting a bunch of questions on the things. I don't know what I was talking about. Oh, weather. So we are still going outside. And so we do, you should prepare your children for that. But we also have interior playgrounds that our pre-K will use with color-coded staircases and one-way hallways to navigate through that. 404 enters and exits from Lawndale, and then the other two are from Monticello. Okay. Lunch and restroom breaks. This is important. At Monroe Elementary, the pre-K classrooms all have their own bathrooms. And so we'll be employing that. One of the things that we heard from teachers earlier on was they thought of a really good point. They were thinking about like, well, what about like toilet seats? Because typically in a pre-K classroom, if you remember schools, you have the white toilet with the black toilet seat that you might remember from your childhood days. And they were thinking, hey, we should get a cover for those. That was a great idea. So we did install extra toilet seat covers on top of all the toilets in pre-K, and each classroom will have their own pre-K bathroom that's regularly cleaned. We have things like markers on our doors that tell you clean, not clean, as each custodian does their individual classrooms through a potted technique that they're using as well. On our next slide, specialist classes. There's a term that I used to use when I was in school, and now who know that something that I did, years ago is now like a term for COVID, which is art on a cart. And so this is a standard model from back in the day at some schools called art on a cart, that the teacher comes to the classroom. And so that's what we'll be doing. The teacher will come to the classroom and work with the students in their room so that they minimize their exposure, while also making sure that those teachers are not rotating to as many rooms as they used to. And so you'll see that each classroom here has its own teacher who will be doing those 30 minutes of instruction in person, 60 minutes of instruction. And if you want to join in from home for the full 60 minutes, you can, but we do say the first 30 for sure from at home. But if you want, you can go up to the full 60 with us in person. We'd love to have you. Those are the specialist teachers and programs that they'll be offering. Gross motor and PE I've talked a little bit about, and the bathrooms we've talked a little bit about. As we go to the next slide here, a typical day in the life of a pre-K student in a cluster program. So I talk a little bit about the day so far. They are going to be receiving student services. Our clinicians have been reporting. Shout out to our clinicians. Like I said, with enhanced PPE as necessary, filters in their offices, making sure that they also have the POD guidelines, and so that when they are providing these services to the children, we would never want to deny services. So they are showing up and providing those services. This is how those will be offered throughout the entire day per the student's IEP, accessing content that will remain in their pod. And we've talked about exiting also through the classroom, and also with 6 feet between families at all times, and addressing symptoms. It gives a summary there that they will be going to the care room. We have care rooms for each building and staff. But once you go to a care room, they do have quarantine. And so I really wanted to score this point. If your child's sick, like, we understand, no pressure. We got to stay at home. Okay. Like, don't feel like, oh my gosh, I don't want them to get marked absent or anything. I know that we all remember being in school, and that's not how it was for us, but it is really important that if your child's home, they should stay. If your child's sick, they should stay home. Students in cluster programs will receive instruction in their classes, which are considered pods. Right now, about the pods at Monroe Elementary are 3 to 5 students per pod. Okay. Attendance, when New York Public Schools went back, about 40% of the students who signed up for in-person actually came back. And so that's why there's that range of size there. Ensuring students and families follow health protocols in order to promote health and being. We talked about staying home, the 14-day quarantine after exposure to COVID-19, and the travel quarantine as well. These are mandatory, and they're all part of that screener process. And as we keep going, we do want to recognize the social and emotional need of all this. I'm talking really fast, and that's because I'm coming from a good place with it. I'm trying to help you understand all of these protocols that we have in place so that we can all live and abide by them, because I want to keep us all safe. But I also want to take time to really acknowledge, we know the social and emotional impact of this is very severe, very grave, COVID, I should say. And so with that, we do have additional social emotional learning supports in place, additional times. Morning meeting will be a great place for all of our students to intermingle virtually and in person, so that they can have that interaction and access to one another and build those friendships that are so important in their grade. Particularly for the age and development of these young little beauties. And so we do really recognize that, and we do just want to acknowledge that we do have additional services and time and lesson planning and a specialist deployed to Monroe Elementary to meet these needs. I think there's one more slide. We have a creative curriculum approach at Monroe Elementary. It's wonderful curriculum that our wonderful teachers have fine-tuned and crafted over the years and really made their own. They've done such great work. And the creative curriculum is thematic based. And so each of these units, it really explores a topic in depth. And so this is a little bit about the creative curriculum with some of the tweaks in particular to topics that we're talking about during COVID. But additionally, SS Grin for early childhood and other curriculums that we've created availability for and a specialist for training to make sure that we really are addressing the social emotional needs of your children. Coming back to school is really scary. One of the things that we do at Monroe Elementary is a calm classroom, and we're looking forward to continuing these practices of like mindfulness and breathing and the kind of working through this, because we know that there's a lot of trauma that kids have experienced from home, from what they've been living. And so we really want to recognize that and honor one another. Okay. And I think maybe that's the last slide. Yeah. I do have a few minutes for Q&A. I think Ms. Lopez, who's been able to address most of them. Doors will be open. Doors for full day is 8 to 3. And for a half day, 8 to 10:30, 12:30 to 3. Okay, so that's when the doors open. That's when the children can begin arriving into the classrooms. We are not allowing the parents into the classroom. Typically, we would have, and we would have loved that. But during this time, no. So it is going to be the first day of school is always difficult, often more on the parent than on the child. Though sometimes it's more difficult on the child, and you'll see it. that child makes it known. We will be out there to really help them along through that process. Our central office staff from Chicago Public Schools has been deployed to really support us in these efforts, as they always are in the first weeks of school, to really make sure that we have a really great opening for your child. And I just want to personally promise that I know this is a very scary time, but I want to promise you we have a strong plan in place, and we are going to do right by your kid. When a kid is at Monroe Elementary, that child is loved and cared for, and that is not changing. There's a lot of things that are changing right now, but that is not changing. When a child is at Monroe Elementary, that child is cared and loved for, whether it's virtual or whether it's at home, or excuse me, in person. We're going to make that happen, and we're going to do right by you and your child. Okay? I personally promise to make sure that happens.
Another quick question. I'm sorry again. Do they have the option of doing more than likely the hybrid model, like going to school like 2 days, 3 days out of the week and staying at home for the rest of the week, I mean?
Yeah, so your child is going to stay home. If they're sick, they're always staying home. If the child, you want to stay home for the day, they stay home for the day. They can opt, like they follow the cadence of the parent sending the child to school. If you have a hybrid slot, you can always go back down into the virtual slot and join virtually from home. That's all. You're always welcome to do that at any time. But we can't, at this moment, we're not increasing our spots going from virtual to in person, because we need to keep our pods safe, and we can't start having a rotation of people entering pods and stuff like that. But if you want to keep your kid home for a day, you keep your kid home for a day.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, lunches. How did I forget that? What an idiot. Lunches. Yes. So Trini, do you want to speak on lunches? Because we were just talking about this with Aramark Services. There's 3 for 4. Oh, sure, we got 3 for 404. Do you want to go through all the classes?
Yes. So for 401, there is 3. 403, there's 5 in the AM, 5 in the PM, and for 404, there is 3. These are all for in person. And then for lunches, full day will have breakfast and lunch, and for half days, the morning will have breakfast, and we're looking to see if we can have a grab and go lunch on their way out at 10:30 for the AM. And for the PM half day, they're going to have a lunch when they come in. There's another thing that our food service is working on, and that is to provide parents with supper. So that they're still trying to work that out, but they really want to provide our students that are coming in person with supper on their way out. And so once we get that more information and confirmation on that, we'll provide that information to you as well.
The reason for the grab and go lunch, that is a new practice for us, is that we are trying to limit the amount of time that, of course, obviously when a kid's in class, they're going to be eating and they're not going to be wearing their mask, over their mouth at that time. And so we are limiting the amount of that time. And so that's the reason for the grab and go lunch. It's another safety protocol that we've taken. And it was a really great one suggested by one of our teachers that we were happy to adopt. I'm going to round out the bases here. My email is up at the top of this. I really thank you guys. Oh, thanks, Tan. It's been a lot. I don't know if I've ever had as much information as I had. Ms. Lopez and I have been digesting such an incredible amount of information and protocol. But I'm happy to do it. We're all in this together. We're all for a good cause. And luckily, I've got such a great team with all of you. And Ms. Lopez and I are really excited to show off all this planning of work that we've done alongside all of you. And so we hope you have a great day. And our Spanish presentation is starting on another link off of our website in just a moment. All right. Thank you, guys.